Well, welcome to a short video where we're going to look at the final exam and look at what you need to submit and how you can do well on this particular assignment. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the kind of deliverables associated with the final exam. We have an executive summary that's required, a decision briefing, and then a supporting paper. And when you look at this, and just think of this in the context of a business setting. And if you're working with a boss who has a high degree of trust and you come to that boss with a idea to do something, he's just going to tell you, or she's just going to tell you to do it. So that's what you get with a high degree of trust. Perhaps you've been working together for decades, and the making of that decision is easy for the boss because he knows or she knows that you understand their intent, you know how they like things to be done, and they're going to allow you to go ahead and make that implementation. If you're working at a lower level of trust, but still a relatively high level of trust, they may ask you for a 2-page executive summary. Just give a short write-up, list out what the options are, list out what the criteria is. I really don't need a lot of detail on this because I trust you. Shoot me the executive summary, I'll look it over, and then make a decision. The third, which requires less trust, is where you go, you know what, I'm not quite sure on this, and I don't have that level of trust in you. Why don't you prepare or perhaps it's really a monumental decision, and you want to get other folks involved. And that's where you're going to have a decision brief. You're going to build a PowerPoint presentation. You've still done the executive summary as well, and you're going to invite folks in more than just your boss and you to have a presentation and look over a particular decision. And then finally, it may be that the executive summary and the decision brief are not sufficient, and you actually need to show your research, to show that you've looked at the market, that you've done a persuasive paper to convince the boss, short paper to convince the boss it's the right decision. So again, your final exam mimics what you'll find in a business setting. And it all is a matter of trust and reaching decisions. And what we're going to do is explore that executive summary, 2 pages long, decision brief, which is about 10 slides, 13 slides long, and then a supporting paper, which is about 8 pages long. So those are the deliverables associated with the final exam. Let's now go into each one of them and look at what you can do to do a good job on this final exam. Well, the first thing, when you're starting to look at the executive summary, it's going to be 2 pages long. Not 1 page long, not 3 pages long, not 3 pages, but it's really 2 pages and 1 line long, because that's longer than 2 pages. It's 2 pages long. Make it 2 pages long. The format for this is you're starting off with a recommendation that's 1 to 2 sentences long, and you're saying, I recommend product X to be your decision. And my backup recommendation, if you don't like product X, is product Y. That's all that it is. It's 1 or 2 sentences long, and it conveys your recommendation. So why do we do this? We do this because executives and decision makers are busy. You may have an hour set aside to brief them, and in fact you only get 10 minutes because other things get compressed in there, and they may read the recommendation and go, you know what, you're right. Let's go ahead and implement that decision. So you put the recommendation all the way up front. And oh, by the way, if your boss does say that you're right, you immediately thank them for reaching the decision, you stop the presentation, and you move on. The worst thing you can do is continue the presentation and somehow convince him or her that you don't know what you're talking about. So recommendation is first part, 1 or 2 sentences. Background is 1 to 2 short paragraphs, just enough to set the context for why the issue exists. Many students like to wax on and take 1.5 pages of their executive summary to talk about the background. That will very quickly get you an F on this assignment. It's 1 to 2 short paragraphs. At most, it's half a page, and that's really stretching it. It's probably 1/4 to 1/8 of a page. After that, you're going to list out the courses of action. And courses of action, if you're not familiar with that, those are choices. And so if you were, for example, making a recommendation for which type of car to be in the next fleet of cars, it could be a Tesla SE. That's a choice. That's a course of action. It could be a Ford Taurus. It could be a BMW 328i. Those are all choices. And so a course of action is a choice. A criteria is going to be what you're going to use to evaluate those courses of action. So again, using the previous example of a car, it could be miles per gallon. It could be how much does it cost. It could be how fast does it accelerate from 0 to 60. So those are going to be your criteria. And if you look at the rubric associated with this, you want to have at least 4 courses of action and at least 4 criteria to make your evaluation. This then brings you to the analysis. The analysis is where you're going to have one or more tables and a couple of paragraphs associated with why you made the choice. You're trying to convince the decision maker that she or he should pick your recommendation. And so the table is where you're taking the courses of action and comparing them against criteria. So literally in one or more tables, you've got the criteria as columns and you've got the courses of action as rows, or vice versa. And then you've got some text under the tables where you do some commentary and some analysis of why you're, how each course of action kind of did against the criteria in a kind of a cumulative way. And so don't leave it as an exercise for the decision maker to read the table. That is C-level work. And in the business setting, it'll get you fired. The second component is lead. Be persuasive. Try to convince the decision maker why you're making a particular decision. So this is the heart of your executive summary. This is where all the points are. Okay? So spend the most time on that table and the paragraphs that follow them. After that, you're going to restate the recommendation, and you've finished up the executive summary. The second comment, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, is read the rubric. There's a grading rubric out there where you can see exactly how many points you're going to lose for doing things. And you can definitely see what I'm specifically looking at as I'm grading it. And so if you're generous and you just want to give me a lot of points, you can engineer the paper that way. If, on the other hand, you're like most students and you want to earn a high grade on this, then read the rubric and make sure that your paper addresses all of the issues. And likewise, I've mentioned this previously, but analysis really is the key. You want to spend your time on the analysis and make sure that that's the strongest part of the executive summary. All right, so that's the format for executive summary. Remember, exactly 2 pages long. It's not shorter. It's not longer. It's not longer by a line. Follow the format, read the rubric, and then analysis is going to be your golden path to getting a good grade on this first part of the assessment. Let's now move into the second component of the assessment, and that's going to be this persuasive PowerPoint presentation. And again, you've got a format associated with this, and so you want to start off with a title slide, use an agenda slide after that, move into that 1 or 2 sentence recommendation, just like you had over in the executive summary. Probably 1 slide on background, and as you note a little bit later, that means 15 to 25 words of background. Be concise, be succinct, be to the point. All right. From there, you move to a listing of the courses of action and criteria. And again, you're just listing them out. The courses of action are choices. The criteria are going to be what you're using to evaluate those choices. That then moves you to really the heart of the PowerPoint presentation, and that's the analysis of the courses of action. This may be 2 or 3 slides. Again, you may have 1 or more tables associated with that. But even if you have 2 or 3 tables, you're going to have a couple of slides of text afterwards that allows you to provide your analysis and be persuasive and relate the criteria to the courses of action. Okay? And then you follow up with a final slide, which is your restated recommendation. All right, be crazy. It's PowerPoint. Use graphics as you're going along. And as I mentioned earlier, 15 to 25 words per slide. Do not print out Encyclopedia Britannica or Wikipedia and paste it in. The decision maker is not going to read that. Okay? Again, this is meant to be persuasive, trying to convince me to follow a particular course of action. From there, that brings you into your persuasive supporting paper. So this is your kind of third and final line of defense to get a decision made. It is not an academic white paper. It is a persuasive paper. You're trying to convince me of something. Single space, single line format, 8 pages minimum, but other than that, you make all the formatting and content decisions. So here you can be creative. You're trying to convince me. All right, well that brings us to the first of the videos on the final exam. I'll go back and do another one where I focus on what a executive summary looks like, and then spend some more time on the analysis, but wanted to go ahead and get this out there so that you have some sense of what's going on with the final exam. You can ace it and earn that grade that you deserve for this course. So keep on studying, keep on learning. Look forward to seeing you online soon.